Nevada preview. So Gophers take on Nevada 1-2 at 2:30 on Big Ten Network. Gophers are currently 16.5 point favorites after opening at 14. Fellas, are you surprised how quickly the line moved towards the Gophers?
I am. I know we just blew out Rhode Island, and Nevada's probably seen by a lot of people as just one of the smaller teams, that people are playing in the non-conference season. But like you said, they've been in just really close games. They played SMU really tight. They probably should have won that game. They probably should have won last week against I think it was Georgia Southern last week, right? So they've been playing really well. And I know that they were expected to be bad from a lot of people, us included, who honestly, let's be honest, we just looked up what all the major outlets were predicting them for their conference, which was not high. I didn't see anyone predicting them to finish higher than the bottom three in the conference. So I don't think it was just us that's surprised by how well they're actually playing, even despite the 1-2 record. So for that reason, I am a little bit surprised that the money came in so heavily on the Gophs.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if I'm surprised or not that it moved. I guess I'm just surprised at the fact that we only opened as 14-point favorites. I would have thought we'd be maybe a little bit closer to 20. So I guess maybe for that, I'm not surprised that it moved the direction that it did. But I think the line starting where it did too is kind of like you said, like it's kind of a Nevada's, despite their record, overachieved, especially from being one of the bottom
Yeah.
dwellers in college football the last couple of years. Um, but yeah, so I guess I'm not surprised, but I think where the line at right now is probably pretty close to what this game could end up being. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means.
Yeah. Um, I am surprised that the line moved. It's probably because of, if anyone watched the game, what the Gophers were able to do through the air was impressive, kind of uncharacteristic. Um, I just don't know. This team is different than Rhode Island. They're going to be tough, and I do think that it's going to be a little close for comfort. Um, but I'll touch on that in a little bit. Um, but fellas, what are your initial thoughts on this Nevada squad? And is it a trap game? Um, Anything stand out? Keys to the game, etc.
Well, I mean, it definitely looks like a trap, and especially when you have a look ahead with Iowa coming up next, and then getting announced that it's a night game on NBC against Iowa the following week. Um, Hopefully, no one in that Minnesota facility is looking at social media or concerned with Iowa at this point. So, in a way, yeah, I think it's a trap game. And like you just said too, like Nevada's not. You can't mess with this team. Like you really can't mess around with them. Kind of looking at their roster too. That surprisingly enough, this is a quarterback we played before. In 2021, Brendan Lewis was with Colorado. He didn't play a ton. He wasn't that great, but that Colorado team wasn't very good either. Um, but now coming with more experience, he's kind of a big mobile quarterback. He's not super fast, but he can kind of use his size well, and he moves decent enough for a quarterback. And he's not like just a drop back and like a statue type quarterback. And just kind of looking at their staff too. So they do have a new head coach, Jeff Chody. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce his name, but he was a co-defensive coordinator at Texas last year, and it seems like he's brought a pretty decent staff with him. Um,
Shudy, did you lose Max or is it just me?
I lost Max.
All right, we
Um,
lost Max. Don't worry. I got you
Gosh, a
guys.
couple
All
years he
right.
was an analyst at Kansas.
Oh,
oh,
Wait,
we,
am I back?
we got him back. We
yeah,
got him back. All right.
How long was
Sorry.
I talking?
Uh,
probably 5 seconds
he was a
Okay.
co-defensive coordinator at Texas,
Yeah.
and then he's back here, and then you cut out.
Yeah, no. Okay. So, yeah, I just said that the head coach comes from Texas. He brings an offensive coordinator who spent time at Oregon, Washington, Nebraska, and then was an analyst at Kansas. So it's a lot of offenses that, a lot of high powered offenses that he's dealt with. Um, and there's the offense that they run is it's definitely a heavy running offense and a lot of option. So that too for this defense, like that's something they really have to prepare for and be disciplined with to stop this offensive attack.
Yeah. Okay, so I went above and beyond on this one, guys. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Kurt, what do you know about Nevada that I don't? You're just a fan, just like me, all right? First thing, watch your mouth. Second thing, I reached out to Jeff on Twitter, who went to Nevada per his bio. I believe him, and he is a Wolfpack fan. So reached out to him just to get his perspective on this game. I could tell by his Twitter he's a huge Nevada football fan, follows every game. So figured it was good to get his insight. I'm just going to kind of read some blurbs on the team from Jeff's perspective, Nevada Wolfpack fan. So here's what he had to say. Shout out, Jeff. Nevada is a dramatically improved team compared to last year. We're still rebuilding after Jay Norvell gutted the program when he left for Colorado State. Ironically, he took a bunch of players with him and now complains about poaching. That'll happen. We then hired Ken Wilson, who was not qualified to be head coach. There's a reason he was a lifelong assistant position coach. We went 4-20 the last 2 years. Chody, again, I don't know how to pronounce the coach's name either. Anyway, this head coach is different. He's doing well. He's going to do well here as long as he's here, and you can see that with the improvement in player performance this year. The players learned how to win, but there's a reason we are 8 points away from being 3-0. On offense, you need to look out for QB Brendan Lewis. He's an okay passer, but can change the game with his legs. He reminds me a lot of Kaepernick, except he doesn't run like a gazelle. We also have a couple of good running backs that have emerged. Savion Red, who's a Texas transfer, is the best running back of their group. He's got good speed and ball carrier vision. Also, look out for Marcus Belton, but he's easy to lose track of and deceptively quick. So that's what you can expect offensively. On defense, you have Drew Watts, who's leading the team in tackles. He's a baller and surprised he wasn't poached by Power 4 programs. Chad Brown, and Michael Coates Jr. are really good corners that can lock down good receivers. Nevada's defense is its strength. We held Georgia Southern to 295 yards of offense and 20 points. A week before, they put up 45 points and 500 yards on a good Boise State team. We're lacking in some areas you'd expect from a group of 5 team, like overall depth, team speed, etc. And then he went ahead. I didn't ask for this, but he also gave us his game prediction, which I appreciated. He said, not that you asked, but here's my game outlook. Nevada can beat Minnesota. We would need to play a nearly perfect game and have a couple of takeaways from the Gophers. I don't think it's a game where Minnesota can win on talent discrepancy alone. But we're going on the road, and Minnesota's a good team. I expect a closer game than the point spread, minus 16.5. I think it'll be close in the first half with Minnesota pulling away in the second half. He's got a final score of Gophers 35, Nevada 21. Thank you, Jeff, for the insight. Really appreciate it. Always like getting other fans' perspective because we're our fans giving perspective. So appreciate you there. Okay. Now that we have Jeff's insight, here's what I'd like to add to that. Their defense is their strength, but their offense, I feel like, isn't built to come from behind. You could probably make the same argument about the Gophers, but for me, hearing what Jeff said, one of my keys to the game is this offense has to come out firing. The offensive line has to come out and get some push. They're going to be able to load the box and like force you to be two-dimensional, which we were able to do last week against Rhode Island, but the offensive line isn't going to have a cakewalk day. It's not going to be a bounce back day as far as just based off talent for the offensive line. So for me, starting fast, putting them down a score is going to be important. I'm kind of rambling a lot, and I don't want to go into score predictions yet. So Shody, I'll let you jump in with anything else you wanted to say.
Yeah, really, that was great insight, Kurt. Thank you for reaching out to him. And everyone, check out. Is he part of the College Huddle, Kurt?
He's not, but
He's
maybe
not.
we should record him if he's watching every game. Jeff, start a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, all I can really add on to that, it seems like I feel like if our defense plays well, and they have been playing well, it should be a pretty good game for us. The problem is going to be up front. Up front, it just seems like, and like our listeners have mentioned today, offensive line hasn't looked very good. And if we're unable to generate any sort of push, it's going to be much more difficult to beat this team than it was Rhode Island. Our offensive line was struggling against a Rhode Island team, FCS team. Um, if that happens again, I don't know why, this Nevada team will do any worse. They're a better team, so it's going to be a problem. Um, but having said all of that, Nevada's offense ultimately isn't too terribly good. They have struggled to get any sort of offensive going, and I think that that's going to be a big difference here. Um, I think this is going to be a game for Brosmer to just kind of go off, and he's going to solidify our route and just throwing the ball to maybe open up the run game. I hope that PJ really does go for that philosophy, and we'll see what he does. Um, all three of Nevada's games have been decided for 3 points or less, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see how it comes down. We are the most talented team that they've played so far. We'll need to be disciplined. Nevada has lacked some discipline in the past few games with some scuffles. They had 2 personal fouls the last game, which their coach was just saying it was unacceptable. I mean,
Yeah.
14 top penalties last games for 134 yards against Georgia Southern. Had that not happened, they'd probably win the game. But anyways, I just think that, again, the offensive line needs to have a good game. I think it's going to be a closer one than we think. I
Before
think
you give the
Nevada will.
score, do you
I
think it
think
has
that the
trap game
goal.
potential, though?
What's that?
Do you think it has trap game potential, though?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that every year that we've played, we've been in a trap game. Every year
Yeah.
since PJ's been here, every year since PJ's been here, it's been a trap game. There has been something, or we've lost one, or
Self-inflicted traps.
yeah. Um, but I do still think that the Gophers land on top. I think it'll be a 28-13 victory for the Gophers. I don't know if that's considered close, but I think it's ugly how it gets there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Max.
Yeah. No, my score prediction is pretty similar to that. I think we win this one 28-10, but I don't think it's, it's not a huge score, but I think it's one of those games I think there's going to be a lot of ground game. So the clock's going to be just kind of running the entire time. Like I mentioned, Nevada with their heavy option run, looking at it, they've been running 58% of the time, which is more than us, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And defensively too, they have played solid defense, a little bit of bend but don't break. Just kind of watching some of their previous 3 games, out of the 3 games, they only have 2 sacks. They've only forced 1 takeaway, and they really don't blitz a ton either. So it's a team that, if we're looking to get Brosmer into a rhythm and get our weapons into a rhythm and kind of figure out who's going to be that number 2 wide receiver and spread the ball around a little bit, this is probably a pretty good game to do it because you're not going to get pressured a ton. It's not a team that's going to force a lot of turnovers. So, um, it could be something we could take advantage of. They do give up more through the air than they do on the ground. So we'll kind of see. It's another good test, though, too, for our ground game, who has, not been the cleanest yet, but we'll kind of see. And I feel like this first quarter is going to be pretty important to jump out to a lead, like you said, Kurt.
Dave Valensky's going 34-14 Gophers. I like that. I would take a 20-point
like
win
it.
all day. I think that'd be a really
Oh,
good
yeah.
win. 2 guys, or it's just 2 points I wanted to point out that Jeff didn't mention in his info he provided. They do have 2 receivers over 200 yards in Jaden Smith and the Braham Jr. guy. So I think that's pretty. I mean, that's way more than we're on pace. I know they've got an extra game on us, but so they do have capable playmakers on the outside. It's not like they don't have athletes out there. And then their tight end also has 2 catches for touchdowns. And his longest reception on the year is only 19 yards. So seems like they, just looking at the statute, that they target him more in the red zone. So pretty typical there. I am a little bit nervous about this one, just with how much I hear and see people already talking about Iowa the following week. And, coaches can say all the right things, but at the end of the day, those players still go back and they check their phones, they check other stuff. I'm not saying they're not going to be locked in. I just think this one's going to be pretty tight. Now I don't have as high score as Jeff does, but I'm going 23-14 Gophers. We score late to pull it away, put it up by 2 scores. But yeah, I think we're in for a little bit of a battle. I think it's going to be really tight at halftime, and yeah. But based on what Max said, with how they're sitting back not blitzing, I'd expect a big day for Christian Driver then, hitting him underneath with his underneath routes and stuff. But yeah, Shuddy, did you give your score? Yeah, you did, didn't you? Yeah.
Yep, 28-13.
Outing
Oh, really close one.
24-21 Gophs.
You know, outing, I could see that happening. I really could. I mean,
I mean, the
I
Bowling
hope
Green
it
is in the
doesn't.
back of everyone's mind still.
Oh,
Like
I mean,
that's
Yeah.
always a possibility. We're not trying to just sit here and be negative. It's just
no.
that's the reality. It's college football.
College,
Players look
it's
ahead.
college football.
One last note, just on, I think you mentioned it, Kurt, that the running back Savion Red, the transfer from Texas, this is going to be a good test to see how much our tackling's improved because he's averaging like 7.5 yards a carry, and he's 5'10", 215 pounds. So big
Oh
back,
yeah,
low to the ground. They're going to feed him. So this
yeah.
is like the perfect test to see where
Yeah.
we're at tackling wise.